Welcome back. You've just tuned into Women's AM. This morning I am joined by Sister Nusrat, Sister Laika, and our special guest, Sister Catherine Jones. Assalamu alaikum, Sister Catherine.
Wa alaikum assalam.
How are you?
Yeah, very good. Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah, you're joining us all the way from Australia today, mashallah. What time is it for you over there?
7:45 in the evening.
Wow, mashallah. Well, at least we got you at a good time. So,
Yes,
Sister, mashallah,
yes.
you are a peaceful parenting coach. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. What I love to do is empower people to be able to parent children from a peaceful place inside. Parenting is such a stressful role at times, and I give parents the tools they can use to be able to parent from a peaceful place, inshallah.
MashaAllah. I think this is, we have someone here who, mashallah, is going to give us plenty of advice. I know for sure that I would probably need some advice and find that peaceful place within myself. Jazakallah khair, Sister Catherine. We'll come back to you, inshallah,
Right.
once we start the discussion. Alhamdulillah, with so much to look forward to, let's go on to her views. The mother has been given such a great significance in Islam that one's permanent abode in the Akhirah will be decided depending on the treatment of their mother. In Islam, we value women and their relationship to their Lord, families and husbands, but the relationship between the mother and daughter is a special one that does not change. The mother is a friend, an advisor, a role model and a guardian who will influence her daughter in every way when the daughter embraces life, but will provide new challenges to the mother on the way. So, mashallah, this is a wonderful sort of topic, one that I think, you know, it's lovely to discuss, because we talk a lot about raising children, but we don't talk about specific relationships here. But Nusra, I'm going to come to you. Tell us a little bit about the important status that Islam offers the mother.
Well, mothers within the Islamic context actually do have a very high status as well, despite the fact that within society we find that mothers, particularly mothers that choose to raise their children at home, are not often sometimes denigrated and not seen as having proper jobs. It's the hardest job in the world, being a mother. Islam recognises that and has actually even given the woman, particularly the mother, a high status. There was actually a hadith related, actually, that a man came to the Prophet and goes, "Who is the most dearest to me?" He goes, "Your mother." After then, who is next dearest? Your mother. After then, who is next dearest? Your mother. And only upon asking the fourth time, he said, "Father." So we see that clearly the mother has a very high status within the family structure. She's also responsible for the raising of her children, because she is essentially the shepherd of her flock in that sense. Obviously, we know that the husband or the father is the emir, but when it comes to the actual nurturing of children and the Islamic personality, she is there. So she has to make sure that she's actually instilling and raising the Islamic values.
It's because, mashallah, she is that primary contact, and Allah has bestowed mothers with the ability to be able to nurture children in the way that they need, especially when they're so young. Remember, this is a live discussion, so if you want to join in on the discussion, please do call in. The number is on your screens now, or you can tweet us at Islam Channel, #WAM15. You know, one thing I have to say, I never really realised how hard it is to be a mother until I became one. Seriously, I don't have a daughter, but when I had my son, I actually literally turned around to my mother and I said, "Mum, I am so sorry for anything I have ever put you through." This was after giving birth. I said, "Please forgive me for anything I've ever done." It's like, I don't know, I didn't realise that just this alone in itself was this hard. I was like, "I'm so sorry." Yeah. But alhamdulillah, I'm going to come to you, Sister Catherine. Sister Catherine, if you could please elaborate on the importance of the mother in Islam, or motherhood, inshallah.
Well, it's definitely covered by what was said about the hadith of that Prophet ﷺ. The Prophet ﷺ also said that, you know, heaven lies under the feet of your mother, and even in the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in chapter 46 verse 15, "We've enjoined on man kindness to his parents. In pain did his mother bear him, and in pain did she give him birth." So even Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran is telling the important role the mum has, and how we should view our mothers, inshallah.
It's true, because the fact that Allah mentions in the Quran that the pain a mother goes through, especially, you know, just bringing the child into the world, that it's not something that you take lightly. But, you know, unfortunately, sometimes, you know, as children grow up, you know, and especially when they go through certain years in their life, especially teenage years, sometimes you find that the relationship between a mother and daughter can get a little bit sour and just kind of veer off from what it used to be. What are the common causes for that, Sister Laika?
So the common causes could definitely be the generation gap because of the difference in age. So the society that the mother may have grown up in and what was normal to her may be different to what the child is growing up in. So that kind of difference could spark controversy or conflict. Also, the idea of marriage, if we're talking about when the girl reaches a certain age and finding a suitable partner, the mother may not agree with certain things, and it could cause conflict as well. Also, sibling favouritism. If there's more than one child in the family, and daughter may feel like the mother's favouriting the son or something like that, and that could cause, quite a bit of a bad sentiment for quite a few years, and that could build up, and because
obviously, and if you don't talk through certain things, they will fester and just grow into bigger problems, unfortunately.
There's a psychology article actually that I read, and it points out that if a mother is dismissive to the child and is ignoring her points, and if she's controlling, not allowing any freedom for her daughter, because usually mothers like to protect their daughters, they're seen as more precious, and they like to think they're special. So if there's no freedom allowed, then it could cause some kind of conflict there as well. And if a mother's not there, she's unavailable, so there's not that friendly relationship, so they're not able to talk about things, and there's no communication relationship.
I think just to say freedom, we talk about actually, giving them the options and the tools to make the right decisions. So, because obviously it's inevitable that, daughters or children in general will make mistakes. I mean, what are sort of the other common causes that we find, Nusrat?
One of the other causes we find when we get to the root of it is sometimes not establishing that relationship at all, or having very little contact. And it's quite easy for us to actually talk about how we don't have a relationship with the mother or daughter, but if one was never built in the first place, then how do you expect to establish something if it had no foundation? So, for example, I was watching a documentary actually where a child went to boarding school at 8 years old, and they traced actually the child, I think, when she was in her teenage years, ready to go to university. And they asked her, did she actually miss her mum? She said no, because she was so away from her mother for that period of time where she didn't actually have time to build that. So that can be a factor as well. The breakdown in understanding and communication. Sometimes it can be just a case of not communicating properly or having the lack of. And communication is very vital when feelings of both the mother and the daughter and the son. And particularly when you make choices that don't always correspond with what the mother has, so expectations, it can sometimes cause friction. And when that's internalized, it's very difficult to kind of communicate how are you feeling. This can be sometimes the case where, particularly in the context of converts, some mothers don't talk to their children who've converted to Islam because they've chosen a universal way of life different to the one that they know. So sometimes life choices are an issue. Having loads of children, again, can be an issue as well, because when you have so many children, it can be sometimes hard to establish that contact. So there are a variety of issues.
Yes, SubhanAllah, there are a lot of things that can come into it, but I think one key factor that you've put in there is the importance of communication, because if you lack that communication, you lack that affection towards one another, then it just makes it so much easier for things to kind of disrupt that relationship, SubhanAllah. Sister Catherine, mashallah, you, besides being a parenting coach, you're also a mother yourself. Could you tell us about why it is important to have this healthy relationship between a mother and daughter?
Well, it's actually really important to have a healthy relationship, but our daughters in particular, they can be quite vulnerable to various situations in the outside world, and you really want them to be able to come to you first and foremost if something happens. If someone approaches them, if something that they're fearful of happens, so that you're the person that they're coming to. What I'd like to say about the communication that was mentioned is I would actually take it one step further and say actually what we need to learn is how to build really good connection with our children, not just to communicate, but really to listen, because children really need to be listened to. We're often so busy telling them and talking to them, but learning how to listen to them. Then when they really have something important to tell us, that communication will be open and we'll be able to hear them. So it doesn't matter what age they are, whether they're young whether they're teenagers, whether they're adults and married. We want to be able to have them come to us for advice, come to us to be their soft place to fall, and not, someone outside of the family who we don't know, maybe even someone that's not from our Islamic background.
Absolutely, I think that's a really valid point, is that we don't know that lack of communication, connection and affection with our child that could actually push them into somebody else's arms, which can be detrimental, because you never know. There are so many sorts of, strange people out there, dangerous types, and we don't know that, subhanAllah, what could happen. But alhamdulillah, we have a caller on the line. We have Sister Hawa on the line. Assalamu alaikum, Sister Hawa.
Alaikum assalam.
I recognise that voice. Assalamu alaikum, Mum.
Alaikum assalam.
What's your question or comment?
Just add what sister say, everything the sister says, to add spend more time with your child, because the more you spend time with your child, whatever it's the girl or boys, then you will know deep your child, and you can have a more relationship, because in order to build a relationship or trust with your daughter, especially, what the most important I think is to spend the time with it. Although you let them their freedom, and especially the society we live in today, what's called freedom, you let them their freedom and they set and extend, but the most important is spend the time with them and do think with them. And when that happens, then it's easy then to communicate or to do stuff together, or then they come to you, trust you, and tell you their worry and what they need. Of course, your mother, you're not always accommodating them, what they want to, obviously, but then at least you have this trust between you, because you already build it out, spending more time with them and giving time they need, especially your child. Go out with them, play with them, do stuff with them, accommodate, give more time. That's when you can build the communication or the trust with your child. But if you don't spend any of that, you don't spend any time with your child, then don't expect to have, by the end of the day, have a good communication, or they come to you for the trust, or you know your child.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. I totally agree, because obviously I am the product of that. But it's true, it's absolutely true. I think for me personally, I have an incredibly close relationship with my mum, and I think the reason why that is because although I wasn't free to do absolutely everything I wanted, she gave me space to do the things that I wanted, while she kind of, kept a very nice distance from me, enough to keep an eye on me, but enough for me to feel comfortable to do the things that I wanted to without feeling like I was, being kind of overlooked.
Really well.
Yeah, I like the way she did that.
Yeah, so it's true. You need to have that you have to have that relationship. You have to have that time that you spend together. And I think my mum is my tea buddy in the evening. We always have our tea, mashallah, together. So
I like particularly where openness is concerned, you need to have openness.
Absolutely.
And it's only upon establishing that openness that, you can see where you are at with your child. Are there any concerns? And you can actually bond and become friends. Obviously, you need to know each other's positions as well. That's needed. Advice in fostering the, I think when you're close to your mum, you can foster the Islamic personality for women. That's needed.
Absolutely. Inshallah, we're going to continue in just a moment. Sorry, Laika, we're going to continue in just a moment. We're off to another break, but stay tuned for the rest of this discussion on the mother-daughter relationship. But before we go, here's a reminder of this week's competition. Assalamu alaikum and welcome back to Women's AM, where we are continuing our discussion on the mother and daughter relationship. And remember, if you want to join in on the discussion, all you need to do is call the number on your screen or join us on, or you can tweet us on Islam Channel #WAM15. So, mashallah, Laika, I cut you off before we went on break. Did you want to finish your point you were making there?
Yeah, I just wanted to say what your mum said was a really good point in terms of spending time with your child, because you've got to remember each child is different. So if you have more than one child, then you've got to recognise the different personalities and how to deal with each personality, and that way you'll be able to create a stronger bond with your kids, because everyone has a different personality. Some people are quieter, some people are more loud.
But even their needs are differing.
Yeah,
well,
definitely.
One child might just want you to read to them, or might want out. Well, it depends. Like you said, you have to look at your
adapt to each child. Yeah.
Exactly, because it's possible to do. It might be a little bit more challenging time-wise, but it's possible to do. And if you allocate everyone their time, then obviously they all feel that they're getting their time with Mama, inshallah. Yeah, definitely. Sister Catherine, I'm going to come to you. When we look at the rights of the child in Islam, especially where the daughter is concerned, how should a mother be treating her daughter with respect in regards to Islam and what it says?
Well, I think one of the most important things for a mother to show her daughter is that we have rights in Islam as women. They're often not regarded seriously, and so as women, we need to actually stand up for our rights and be an example for our daughters, so that they grow up knowing that and don't accept to be treated in ways that are unacceptable as Muslim women. So the first thing is to be a fantastic role model for our daughters. The second one is through education, and educating our daughters on what their rights are in Islam, and fulfilling our rights to them, their rights on us, I mean, is that, we treat them with kindness, that we give them an education, that we bring them up as beautiful Muslim women that they are. Inshallah.
Inshallah. I think it's one of those things that, every parent wants to kind of bring up their child in the best way possible. And alhamdulillah, we have, our Islam that teaches us this. It gives us guidelines. And I think one thing that we perhaps as a community sometimes lack, especially when it comes to raising our girls, is that we don't, not teach them their rights, but we don't actually make them feel confident enough to actually demand those rights if they feel that they're not being given their due. And I think it's about teaching them confident in that from us and ourselves. Sister Laika, what other things can we add to the respect and the rights of the daughter?
So there's three main points that I came up with. The first is that she should take care of you when you're a child. So that is breastfeeding and nurturing you. So in the Quran it says, the mother shall give suck to the children for 2 whole years for those parents who desire to complete the term of suckling in Surah Al-Baqarah. So that's the first. So that establishes a relationship right from the start, so as soon as the child is born. Second, she should bring you up in a righteous manner. So a woman, like you said in the beginning, she's a shepherd to her flock, the same way a man is a shepherd to his flock. But a woman is, if a woman is bringing up her children, she's constantly going to be with them. So bringing them up in a righteous manner, meaning their manners, and what Sister Catherine said is really important, the fact that she's a role model. So her general lifestyle is going to be, in front of the child's face all the time, every single day. So her manners, the way her housekeeping habits, her cleanliness, all of that.
Her interactions with other people as well.
Definitely, it's going to affect the child. So, and her emotional strengths and weaknesses, the child is going to experience that. So her position as a role model shouldn't be taken lightly, because everything she does is what, we say we are the product of our parents. So everything they do.
You think that they're not paying attention to you, they're soaking it in, and sometimes it's really incredible the sort of things that they pick up just from even body language. And subhanallah, it's a massive responsibility. It's a massive undertaking, and it goes for both, whether you have a son or a daughter. It's just to be able to be whatever you want your child to be. You need to be able to embody those characteristics yourself, so that they can pick up things. But when we look at the duty, we've looked at the duty of the mother towards her child or her daughter. What are the mother's duty towards her daughter, Sister Nusrat?
The daughter's duty towards mother, is that you have to be kind to your mother in all aspects. So a daughter's duty to her mother to have the utmost patience and show kindness. Don't even utter a word of off to her. So you have to always lower the wing of humility. And even if for example, particularly in the context of patience, that your mum may not be adhering to certain aspects of Islamic orthodoxy. So she may not be, for example, maybe she doesn't cover, or maybe she doesn't adhere to segregation, or maybe she doesn't even pray. You can't even be cruel to her when you're telling her. You have to actually notice that this is your mum and address her with that kind of respect. And this is even mentioned actually in Surah Al-Isra, chapter 17 of the Quran, verses 23 to 24. Your Lord has decreed that you worship none but him, and you be kind to your parents, whether one or both of them is attain old age in your life. Say not to them a word of contempt, nor repel them, but address them in terms of honor. So clearly from here we're seeing that actually you can't even show contempt to them. You have a duty to also look after your parents in their old age as well, so long as it doesn't conflict with your marital duties, as you may be married when you have your own family. The rules actually of how we treat our parents don't change, even if the parent is not Muslim. In fact, it's perhaps even even more imperative on us to even treat them with the utmost kindness, because it could be because of this that they embrace Islam. We see also that within the context of child's duties to mother, daughter's duties to mother, we are actually allowed to disobey our mums. But the context of that is if they're doing something that takes you out of Islam. So, for example, Musab ibn Umair, he loved his mum like no man's business. Like, he actually loved his mum so much. And to some degree, he was kind of scared of her, but he did love his mum. But when his mum was trying to take him out of Islam, he was just like, no, I have to follow Islam. So whenever you're put into a situation where you have to compromise an Islamic principle, it's better you adhere to Islamic principles than to actually obey your mum in that context.
Absolutely, I think it's really important to kind of remember that it doesn't matter what how our parents behave towards us. Obviously, they will account for those things when it's their time, but we also have, you know, to account for our own actions, and we have a responsibility and duty towards them. So it doesn't matter how they treat us, but what matters is how we also treat them. So it's a matter of understanding that just because someone does something to you, because sometimes you do have relationships between, you know, a child and a parent where, you know, the conditions are not ideal, they don't get along, and because maybe a parent is somehow unkind to their child, the child might think, well, if they're treating me in this way, then I can treat them in the exact same way because this is what they deserve. But in actuality, we can't do that. It isn't right, and you know, as the saying goes, two wrongs don't make a right. So there is no reason why I feel that you're justifying any.
But a daughter and a son is different. So, for example, you know, we must, before marriage, you must also always treat them with respect, like you said. And there's this quote by Ibn Abbas I found. It says, treating with respect and kindness and lowering the wing of humility to them, not answering them harshly or glaring at them, not raising one's voice to them, but being as humble towards them as a slave towards his master. So like you said, not saying off, not even glaring, like opening your eyes and being like, oh my God. Like, not even mumbling under your breath. And I think after marriage, when a woman gets married, her authority lays with her husband has more authority over her than her parents. And so we need to remember that. Even though her parents are always going to be important to her in her life, her husband's authority always takes over. That's by Ibn Taymiyyah. However, you must still care for your parents. You must still be dutiful towards your parents. You must still respect them. That doesn't mean that you can offend them and do things that they dislike.
But I think this is just reminiscent of the fact that as you grow older, sort of the dynamics of certain relationships change, which is sort of, you know, true in all aspects of life. So whether it becomes between, you know, the relationship that you have with your spouse and the relationship that you have with your parents, all these things sort of change. And I think Ali radiallahu anhu made a beautiful statement where he said, you know, do not raise your children as you were raised, because you were raised for a different time. And I think it's one of those things that you have to understand that sometimes, you know, times change, and along with those times you have to think of new ways to kind of bring your children into, you know, to you and treat them in a way that you feel that is going to nourish that relationship, because things change, society changes, and so our techniques must change, alhamdulillah. So, you know, some of us, like we said, sometimes we might not have a good relationship with our mother. What kind of advice can we give to anyone who maybe is having, you know, a bit of a difficult time in having a good relationship with their mother or their daughter, Sister Nusrat?
I think one of the pieces of advice I can give is don't just listen, and this works both ways. Don't just hear a person, actually listen to them, because a lot of the time we tend to only hear someone in order for a quick reply to occur. Actually listen to the heart, listen with both your heart and your ears to your child, and vice versa, because that way you can actually better help them. And in order to do this, you need to understand the human condition. So understanding what makes your child feel upset, what makes her feel happy, what are the things that she may be dealing with that she isn't telling you. Patience as well. I know one mum, actually, to be fair, that or you hear of stories where there is a mum that behaves in quite a ratchet way, and the daughter or the child would not be that way. So you have to exercise patience, even if their behaviour may not be at least to the standards of what you agree to be Islamic. Show patience and actually deal with them in a lovely way, because it could be because of that they actually may change. So don't always win with argument, win with action.
Absolutely. I think I'm going to bring in Sister Catherine as well. Sister Catherine, what advice would you give to a mother or a daughter who are trying to improve on their relationship?
I totally agree with the listening, being present. Quite often as parents, we're often busy doing other things, and we're pretending that we're actually listening to our children when we're not really, and they know that. They know whether we're present or not. And when it comes to teenagers, because I guess that's one of the ages that people have a lot of struggle with is with teenagers, it's actually about stopping talking and just being in their world and just hanging out in their world. And when it becomes safe for them, they'll open up and they'll connect with you. And that's the way with teenagers, is it'll be on their terms, not when we expect or we want them to open up, but when they come to us, and we need to be ready to just sit down and really listen in those moments. With the younger kids, I would say and older ones actually, don't forget to be playful. I think we get too serious. We need to be a bit fun and really connect with our children in a playful way.
Yeah, mashallah. I think it's really important what Sister Catherine there has said is, don't be so serious. I think it's one thing that sometimes we forget, and I can definitely say that sometimes you forget to be playful because you're so distracted by everything that you're trying to get done and everything that you need to get done that you forget to just have those simple little pleasures. So, but Jazakallah khair.
Have compromise between both mother and daughter.
Jazakallah khair for that, Laika. Regardless of whether you're an adult or married with children, your mother will always hold a special place in your heart and can be your gateway to Jannah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given the mother such a status that we should maintain the best of relationships with her. But let us not forget that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also mentions that your wealth, your children are but a trial, and Allah has with him a great reward. And this is from chapter 64, verse 15. It's been a wonderful discussion, but if you've missed any of today's show, you can watch a repeat tonight at 11 p.m, or you can catch up with the highlights from this week on Sunday at 3 p.m. Or inshallah, you can catch us on YouTube. Take a look at this clip to find out more.